By day, he stood behind the pulpit, bathed in sunlight and reverence. But when the moon rose, so did the lies. Beneath the collar of righteousness was a young man dancing with his demons, one shot at a time. Michael Grant was the golden boy of Riverside Chapel. The only son of Pastor James Grant, he was raised to be a beacon of faith, discipline, and modesty. His voice echoed through youth services, his prayers were eloquent, and every elderly woman in the congregation claimed he had the spirit of a future leader. But when the church doors closed and the congregation went home, Michael's world turned dark, deliciously dark. Every Friday night, while his father prayed over the city, Michael changed into ripped jeans and a designer shirt, swapping his Bible for a bottle of tequila. The flashing lights of Club Eden became his sanctuary, the DJ's pulpit booming with bass instead of gospel. He wasn't just a visitor, he was a regular. They called him Saint Mike as a joke, and he laughed along, even buying drinks for strangers with the money his father believed went to youth outreach. It wasn't rebellion, at least not at first. It was relief. Pressure had mounted on him since he was 10, to be pure, to be perfect, to walk in a destiny he didn't choose. But in the club, nobody expected perfection. They loved his flaws. One night, drenched in sweat and vodka, Michael kissed a girl whose name he never learned. And that kiss was captured in a blurry photo that would soon reach the church WhatsApp group. Now, Michael's two lives were on a collision course: the pulpit and the party, the prayer and the poison. And when the photo spread like wildfire, the congregation asked, what happens when the pastor's son becomes the prodigal? Because sometimes the preacher's child doesn't run away. Sometimes he dances just beyond the stained glass windows, hoping no one sees. The church was silent except for the low hum of the ceiling fan and the rustle of Bibles being opened. Every Sunday, Michael Grant sat in the front pew, pressed shirt, slacks ironed to perfection, Bible in hand, eyes fixed on his father. His posture was perfect, his smile polite, and his amens arrived on cue. To the congregation, he was a prodigy. At 23, he led youth services, counseled teens, and even preached when Pastor James Grant was out of town. The old women beamed when they saw him. The young women prayed they'd catch his eye. And his father spoke of him from the pulpit as though he were already halfway to sainthood. But Michael wasn't the boy they thought he was. Not anymore. As the choir harmonized through the final hymn, Michael's phone buzzed in his pocket. He knew who it was. Friday night, same table, the message read. A grin tugged at his lips before he caught himself and quickly bowed his head, feigning prayer. Later that night, after dinner with his parents and small talk about scripture, Michael changed out of his Sunday best and slipped into the clothes he kept hidden in his trunk: a black tee, distressed jeans, and fresh sneakers. He drove to the outskirts of town, to Club Eden, where smoke curled like serpents and the music pulsed like temptation itself. As he stepped inside, bathed in red light and lustful energy, the bartender nodded. "Saint Mike," she said with a smirk, sliding him a shot of bourbon. Michael chuckled. He drank it down. And just like that, the boy in the pew was gone, replaced by a stranger he barely recognized anymore. Club Eden wasn't just a place. It was a release, a baptism in shadows. The moment Michael stepped through the steel-framed doors, the pressure that wrapped around his chest like a vice began to loosen. Here he wasn't the pastor's son. Here he wasn't a sermon in training. He was just Mike, one of many lost souls swaying to the rhythm of the night. The bass throbbed beneath his feet as he wove through the crowd. Strobe lights painted his face in flashes, gold, blue, crimson, like stained glass in reverse. The music was loud, seductive, and unapologetically wild. He lived for this. The chaos, the anonymity, the thrill of being unknown in a city where everyone thought they knew him. A familiar hand brushed his arm. "Late tonight," said Avery, a dark-eyed woman with a septum ring and an intoxicating laugh. She wore leather and confidence like armor. Thought the holy boy might have finally turned good. Michael smirked. "Good doesn't pay well." She chuckled and handed him another drink. "Cheers to being bad, then." They danced. Not the kind of dance he'd learned at church socials. No stiff movements or polite distance. This was primal, magnetic. As Avery's fingers slid into his hair, Michael forgot about Sunday morning. Forgot about the memory verses and the elders and the pressure. For a few hours, he was untouchable. But even in the blur of liquor and desire, A voice echoed in his head, his father's voice. "Your body is a temple, son. Guard it well." Michael blinked hard. The moment shattered. He pulled back, heart pounding. The lights, once seductive, now seemed harsh. He pushed through the crowd and stumbled into the restroom, gripping the sink, staring at himself in the mirror. Who was he becoming? Behind him, the music continued. The night was still young, but Michael was cracking. The scent of incense and old wood filled the church as Michael sat with his eyes shut tight, pretending to pray. His head pounded, not from divine revelation, but from the bourbon and sleepless night before. The hangover was subtle but present, hiding behind his polished smile and crisp white shirt. "Michael," Pastor James said, clapping a firm hand on his son's shoulder. "You're leading prayer today. Be bold, son. Speak with the fire of the Spirit." Michael forced a nod. "Yes, sir." He stepped up to the pulpit, gripping the sides like a man holding onto the edge of a cliff. Faces stared up at him, familiar ones. Sweet Sister Helen, the organist with trembling hands. Marcus, the shy teen who looked up to him like a brother. Even Angela, the new church member with soft eyes that lingered on him longer than most. Michael cleared his throat. "Let us bow our heads." The words came easily. After all, he'd grown up hearing them every day. But as the prayer rolled off his tongue, a sick knot twisted in his stomach. He wasn't just lying to his father or the congregation. He was lying to God. And the worst part, he was good at it. "Amen," he whispered, stepping down as applause erupted. Later, as he passed through the fellowship hall, Sister Ruth handed him a plate of banana bread and smiled. "You're a blessing to us, Michael. A true man of God." He smiled back, ashamed. If only you knew. As he stepped outside into the sunlight, his phone buzzed again. One message. "Same time tonight? Avery." Michael hesitated. Then he typed back, "Of course." The messages became more frequent. The club nights grew longer. Michael was balancing two lives like a juggler with blades, knowing it was only a matter of time before something slipped. Monday morning brought a new test. Angela, the soft-spoken church member who had recently moved into town, had asked for spiritual guidance. They met in the youth room, Bibles on the table, coffee in styrofoam cups. "I've been struggling," Angela said quietly, "with trust, with feeling like I'm not enough." Michael nodded, his posture straight, voice gentle. "You're more than enough in God's eyes. He sees your heart even when people don't." She looked at him, vulnerable and searching. "Do you ever doubt yourself?" The question pierced deeper than she intended. Michael paused. "Sometimes, but I try to remember who I am." But who was he really? That night, he found himself back at Club Eden, drink in hand, Avery whispering something reckless in his ear. As the music pounded and bodies pressed around him, a flash caught his eye. Someone had taken a picture, a guy with a phone. He was showing it to someone else, laughing. Michael's chest tightened. Had he been recognized? He stormed out the back exit, breath ragged. This life was catching up to him, and he could feel the walls starting to close in. Tuesday morning, a message arrived. No text, just a photo. Michael, arms wrapped around Avery, mid-laugh, drink in hand. The timestamp was last Friday. Beneath it, "You're not who they think you are, preacher boy." His hands trembled. The sender was unknown. The threat was clear. Michael sat down on the edge of his bed, eyes scanning the image over and over. That picture could destroy everything. His father's trust, the youth ministry, the illusion of perfection. His phone buzzed again. "Pay or I send it to your father." The line between his lives had vanished. Michael was out of time. Michael stared at the message for hours. His phone buzzed twice more, but he couldn't bring himself to open it. His mind raced through possible suspects. Someone from the club, a jealous ex, a backslider from the church with a grudge. No matter who it was, the truth remained. Someone had caught him. The price of his double life had come due. That night, instead of going to Club Eden, Michael sat in his car outside the chapel. It was late, past midnight. The parking lot was empty, shadows stretching across the sanctuary like judgmental fingers. He stepped inside. Alone, he knelt at the altar. No music, no crowd, just silence and shame. "God," he whispered, his voice hoarse, "I don't even know who I am anymore." The weight of his secret pressed down on his chest like a stone slab. For the first time in years, he cried. Not tears of fear, but of loss, of guilt, of knowing he'd betrayed not just his father, not just his church, but himself. But no answers came, only stillness. Michael left the church feeling no cleaner than when he entered. He still had a decision to make, and time was running out. Wednesday brought another message, this time a demand, and $500,000 by Friday, or your father gets the truth. Michael nearly dropped the phone. He didn't have that kind of money lying around. His savings barely touched and won $20,000, most of which was meant for grad school. Desperate, he called the number. No answer. Straight to voicemail. He sent a message. Who are you? What do you want from me, really? The reply was instant. You're not the only hypocrite in the pews, Michael. There was venom in those words, familiar venom. Someone who had sat in church long enough to learn its language. This wasn't a stranger. This was someone close. Michael's stomach twisted. He began listing names in his head. Who had access to both worlds? Who had seen him without the mask? He had 3 days to pay, 3 days to find the snake, or confess everything first. Angela stopped by the church again. She was volunteering for the youth food drive and brought lunch with her, turkey sandwiches and bottled water. You look tired, she said, handing him a sandwich. Michael forced a smile. Rough week. I heard a quote once, she said. Character is who you are when no one's watching. Makes you think, right? He nodded slowly. It really does. They sat in silence for a moment, chewing. Michael watched her. She was kind, real, the kind of woman he might have fallen for, if he were a different man. Would you ever date someone from church? She asked suddenly. Michael stiffened. I guess it depends, he said, on who they are and what they're hiding. She smiled, unaware of the storm behind his eyes. Later that night, Michael stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. He didn't recognize the man looking back. Bloodshot eyes, tense jaw, a man splitting in two. He smashed the mirror with his fist. The glass cracked, but not as deeply as his soul. Michael returned to church Thursday evening to prep for Sunday's youth worship. The choir was rehearsing in the background, their harmonies echoing through the sanctuary. Then he heard it, a voice behind him, sharp, whispered. You think they'd still clap for you if they knew what you really are? He spun around, but no one was there, just the choir singing a hymn. Michael rushed down the side hallway, heart pounding, but saw nothing. Only his own breathing and the haunting echo of music. His paranoia deepened. Was the blackmailer here? Were they watching him right now? He walked back to his office, locked the door, and slumped in his chair. A sticky note was on the desk. Tick-tock, preacher boy. He dropped it like it was fire. Someone had been in his space. They weren't bluffing. Friday came. Michael didn't have the money. He sat in a quiet cafe on the edge of town, staring blankly at his coffee. Then a man in a suit sat across from him without asking. Michael Grant, the man said. We have a mutual acquaintance. Michael's chest tightened. You're the one? The man smiled. Not quite, but I represent someone who can help. He slid a card across the table. Marcus Vale, Legal Services. I clean up problems, for a fee. Michael hesitated. How do you even know? We know everything, Michael. Your blackmailer, your club habits, your double life, and we know how to make it disappear. Michael stared at the card, heart thundering. Vale stood and leaned in. This is your one shot. Say yes, and we handle it. Say no, and watch it all burn. Then he walked out, leaving behind a chilling silence. Michael clutched the card. Now he wasn't just caught between good and evil. He was about to strike a deal with the devil. Michael didn't sleep. He paced his apartment until sunrise, holding Marcus Vale's card like it was a loaded gun. He thought of his father's sermons, about sin, consequence, and redemption. But he also thought of that picture, that message, that threat. When the sun finally rose, Michael made the call. Vale answered on the first ring. Smart choice. What do you want from me? Not much, just a favor. In return, your secret dies tonight. Michael's heart froze. What kind of favor? A small delivery, nothing illegal, but delicate. Michael felt the trap tighten. And if I say no? The photo will be sent to your father before the morning service. A pause. "Fine," Michael said. "Where do I go?" Saturday night, Michael drove to a motel in the outskirts of town, room 108. He knocked once. A man with a scarred face opened the door, said nothing, handed Michael a sealed brown envelope. "Deliver this to a woman named Harper Dale. She'll be at Riverside Cafe, Sunday, after church, noon sharp." Michael stared at the envelope. "What's in it?" "Not your business." The man closed the door. Michael stood in the parking lot, staring at the envelope like it might explode. He didn't want to know what he had just agreed to, but he also knew he didn't have a choice. He had crossed a line now, and there was no turning back. That morning, the church was packed. Pastor Grant's sermon was fire and thunder. Michael sat in the front pew as always, but his hands were shaking. He hadn't slept. He could feel the envelope burning in the trunk of his car. Angela caught his eye from across the hall, smiled. He didn't smile back. After service, he slipped away before anyone could stop him. He had one job to do, one delivery, and then, he hoped, he'd be free. Harper Dale was nothing like Michael expected. Elegant, cold, hair pulled into a perfect bun. She sipped tea as though she owned time. He sat across from her and placed the envelope on the table. She didn't touch it. "You know who I am?" she asked. "No, I don't want to." "Good," she said. "That means you'll live longer." Then she picked it up, stood, and walked out without another word. Michael sat there for a long time, unsure what kind of storm he had just fueled. Whatever was in that envelope, it wasn't over. That evening, Pastor Grant called Michael into his study. "I've been getting messages," his father said, voice calm but unreadable, "about you." Michael's blood ran cold. What kind of messages? Anonymous, strange, warnings. Michael stayed silent. "I want to trust you, son, but I need to ask." His father leaned forward. "Is there anything you want to confess?" Michael's mouth opened, but nothing came out. "No," he lied, "nothing." Pastor Grant looked into his eyes for a long time. Then he simply nodded. But something in his gaze had changed. Monday morning, a new message. "You did well, Michael. There will be more." Michael was done. He called Vale. "I'm out. No more." "No," Vale said. "You're in deeper now, and we don't let our people walk away." Michael hung up, panicked, pacing again. Then he got another message, this time with a new photo. Angela, sitting in the church office. "Behave, or she gets pulled into this too." Michael screamed and threw his phone against the wall. He had traded his soul, and now they were after his heart. Angela was no fool. Michael had changed. Distant, nervous, cold. "Are you okay?" she asked during youth group setup. "I'm fine," he lied. "You're lying," she said quietly. "I don't know what it is, but you're not the same." He couldn't meet her eyes. She took a breath. "You're not alone, you know. Whatever it is, you can talk to me." Michael nearly broke, but he couldn't, not yet, not when her life might depend on her staying ignorant. That night, Michael heard footsteps outside his window. A knock. He opened the door, expecting Vale. It was someone else, a teenage boy, maybe 17. "Michael Grant?" the boy asked. "Yes?" The boy handed him a flash drive. "You'll want to watch this." He walked away. Michael locked the door, plugged the drive into his laptop, and froze. It was a video of Vale killing someone. The man in the video was pleading, tied to a chair, bloodied. Vale stood behind him, calm. "You should have kept quiet." Then he slit the man's throat. Michael slammed the laptop shut. He was dealing with a killer. His phone rang, no caller ID. "Now you know who I am," Vale's voice said. "And now you know what I'm capable of. Don't ever think about crossing me again." The line went dead. Michael knew he was trapped. He also knew he had to find a way out, before it was too late. Michael couldn't take it anymore. He drove to the old chapel on the edge of town, the place his father went to pray in private. There he found Pastor Grant in the pews, reading. Michael sat beside him. "I need to confess something," he said, voice trembling. His father looked at him, but said nothing. "I've been living a lie, going to clubs, drinking. I made a deal with someone dangerous, and now I don't know how to fix it." He expected shouting, judgment, but his father only whispered, "Thank you for telling me." Then he added, "Now let's fix it, together." Pastor Grant was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "We need help, legal help, real help." "No police," Michael said quickly. "They'll hurt Angela or you." Grant nodded. "Then we'll be careful. We'll outsmart them." Michael looked at his father in a new light. Not just a preacher, not just a moral voice, a protector. For the first time in weeks, Michael felt hope. They weren't alone anymore. They met in secret. Pastor Grant, Michael, and a trusted friend, Detective Alan Clark, a former church member now working off books. They studied the video, traced phone records, dug into Marcus Vale's background. "Vale isn't just a fixer," Clark said. "He's part of a bigger network. Blackmail, extortion, quiet assassinations." "What do they want from me?" Michael asked. "You were a test, a pawn, but now they see value in keeping you scared." Michael clenched his fists. "Then it's time I scare them back." Michael went back to Club Eden. Not to party, to confront. He found Avery near the bar. "We need to talk," he said. She raised a brow. "About?" "About who you work for, about Vale. Don't pretend you don't know." Her smile faded. "You're playing with fire, St. Mike." He stepped closer. "Then let me burn." Avery led him to a back room. There, she whispered the truth. "Yes, I know Vale. Yes, I helped him. But only because I owed him." "Owed him what?" Michael asked. "My life." She lit a cigarette. "He saved me once. But now I'm just another prisoner, just like you." "Then help me, get out." "I can't," she whispered. "He'll kill me." Michael placed a hand over hers. "Then let's end him." With Clark's help, they created a plan, a trap. They would arrange a fake handoff, Michael pretending to smuggle another envelope. Only this time, the room would be wired. Hidden cameras, backup ready. Angela was moved to safety, every step timed, every route mapped. "This is dangerous," Pastor Grant warned. "I know," Michael said, "but if I don't stop this, I'll never be free." Friday night arrived. The sting was in motion. Michael sat alone in room 207 of the Greenlight Motel, the same location Vale had used for previous drops. The lights were dim. A fake envelope rested on the table, stuffed with blank sheets, waited to feel real. In his ear, Clark's voice. "Room's wired. You're clear. We've got eyes from the hallway and the car lot." Michael tried to steady his breathing. This was it, the moment he stopped running. The door creaked open. Vale entered, alone. "Good," he said, eyes scanning the room. "You're learning obedience." Michael slid the envelope forward. "It's all there." Vale picked it up, nodded. Then, "Too easy." He turned sharply, drew a gun. "You're wired, aren't you?" Before Michael could respond, Vale fired into the lamp. Glass shattered. Static screeched in Michael's earpiece. Chaos. Michael dove behind the bed as Clark and officers stormed the hallway, but Vale had already slipped out through the back stairwell. They'd underestimated him. Again, Vale was gone. The motel room was shattered. Clark cursed under his breath. He knew someone tipped him. Michael stood, hand shaking. "We failed." "No," Clark growled. "He's scared. That's why he ran." But fear didn't make Vale weak. It made him unpredictable. By the time they returned to the safe house, another message had arrived on Michael's phone. "I told you, you don't outplay me. You bury people you love." Attached was a photo. Angela, bound, eyes wide with terror. Michael dropped to his knees. Angela had been volunteering late at the shelter. Vale's men grabbed her in the parking lot. Pastor Grant blamed himself. "We should have moved faster." Michael was a mess. "This is my fault. I dragged her into this." "No," Clark said. "Vale made a mistake. Now he's given us leverage." "But he has her," Michael snapped. "She's not leverage. She's bait." They received coordinates later that night. A remote warehouse on the edge of the city. No police, no tricks. Just Michael. Alone. It was suicide. But he didn't care. He would walk into fire if it meant saving her. The warehouse was cold and vast, filled with crates and metal scaffolding. Dim lights flickered overhead like dying stars. Michael entered slowly, hands raised. "Vale," he shouted. "I'm here. Let her go." Vale's voice echoed from the shadows. "You think you're the hero, preacher boy?" Angela was tied to a chair near the far wall, gagged, crying. "You want her?" Vale said, stepping out with a pistol. "You trade your life for hers." Michael didn't hesitate. "Take me." He stepped forward, heart steady for the first time in weeks. Vale raised the gun. Then, a shot rang out. Vale fell. Clark emerged from the dark with a smoking gun. Angela sobbed. Michael rushed to her. It was over, or so they thought. The warehouse went up in flames less than an hour later. Vale's body was gone. The floor was rigged with explosives. Clark barely got them out in time. By morning, every trace of Vale's network had vanished. Phones disconnected, accounts wiped clean. The man was a ghost. Michael held Angela's hand in the back of an ambulance. "I'm sorry," he whispered. She looked at him, tears in her eyes. "Don't be. You saved me." He nodded, but inside, he knew it wasn't over. Evil like that didn't die easily. It just changed names. And Michael was no longer afraid to face it. The footage on the USB wasn't grainy. It was crystal clear. It showed conversations in the church hallway, meetings in Pastor Grant's study, even private moments between Michael and Angela. The camera wasn't in the ceiling or a smoke detector. It was in the cross on the wall behind Michael's desk. Michael stared at it in horror. That cross had been a gift from Deacon Andrew, a longtime friend of his father's, a man who prayed loudly, hugged warmly, and gave generously. And now, a man who was feeding information to Vale's network. Michael felt rage for the first time in weeks. Not fear, not shame, pure rage. He was done reacting. Now he was going to fight back. Michael called a secret meeting in the church basement. Only Angela, Clark, and Pastor Grant were invited. He laid everything out: the recordings, the connection to Deacon Andrew, and the list of religious leaders tied to dirty money. "This is no longer just a personal fight," Michael said. "This is spiritual warfare." Angela gripped his hand. Clark nodded. "We take down the network. We expose every leader on that list. But we need proof." Michael turned to his father. "Can you get Andrew to talk?" Pastor Grant closed his eyes. "If it means saving the church, yes." The confrontation was quiet, tense, and painful. Deacon Andrew sat across from Pastor Grant in the study, fingers trembling. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. "I've served this church faithfully for 30 years. "You put a camera in my son's wall," Pastor Grant said. Silence, then a bitter chuckle. "You don't understand what you're up against," Andrew said coldly. "You think this ends with one man in a club? This movement runs through banks, through pulpits, through nations." "So you admit it." "I admit nothing. But if you push this, people will die." Pastor Grant recorded the entire exchange. It was time to go public. Michael stood on the stage at a citywide youth convention 2 weeks later. He was no longer there to impress or inspire. He was there to expose. He played the video. He named the names. He confessed his own sin before anyone else's. "You don't need to be perfect to be faithful," he said. "You just have to be honest." The crowd erupted in applause, mixed with gasps, tears, and shock. Michael knew it would cost him friends, status, safety, but it also gave him something he hadn't felt in a long time: freedom. The backlash was immediate. The church received anonymous threats. Angela's tires were slashed. Michael's face appeared in slanderous online articles accusing him of drug use and fraud. Even Clark got suspended for unauthorized surveillance. But the fire only made Michael stronger. He walked through it with his head high and his heart steady. He wasn't just the pastor's son anymore. He was becoming his own man, and he knew something no one could take away. God had never abandoned him, even when he was dancing in darkness. Now, he was walking into the light with both eyes open. The church didn't fall apart. It refined itself. Some members left, others stayed and wept. A new community was forming, not built on appearances, but authenticity. Youth from other churches began visiting, not for the music, not for the lights, for the truth. Michael led midweek sessions called The Furnace. Not sermons, conversations. People confessed things they had never spoken aloud. Shame was losing its grip. A remnant was rising, and Michael was leading it, scarred, honest, and unafraid. Angela had healed, but she was changed. She pulled Michael aside one morning after a group session. I'm leaving, she said. Not forever, but for a while. Where? He asked, throat dry. Seminary, out of state. I want to learn how to fight for people the right way. Maybe even come back and build something of my own. Michael nodded slowly. I'll miss you. She smiled. You'll be fine. You were never meant to lean on anyone but God. Then she kissed him once on the cheek and walked out with purpose in her stride. Michael let her go. She wasn't an anchor, she was a torch. Weeks later, Michael found an envelope hidden in the lining of his church desk. From Vale. You've made a dent, but not a kill shot. There are still shadows in your walls. Be careful who you call brother. It was postmarked from another country. Michael folded it, locked it away. It wasn't over, but he was no longer afraid. Detective Clark called from a secure line. Got something, a name, the real head of the network, former military, now clergy, international reach. Michael listened as Clark listed names, dates, movements. One name stood out, Father Samuel Brighton, a man who had once spoken at Riverside Chapel, who had even blessed Michael when he was 16. Michael's jaw clenched. Where is he now? Abuja, hosting a global faith summit. Michael's heart pounded. He had seen the devil's face, and it wore robes. Michael flew to Abuja with Clark under the radar. The summit was opulent, thousands in attendance. Every major church had a representative. And at the center, Father Brighton, charismatic, smiling, dangerous. Michael watched from afar, memorizing his patterns, his allies. You can't expose him without concrete proof, Clark warned. He'll crush you in public. Then I'll do it in private. Michael snuck into Brighton's private suite after midnight. The priest wasn't surprised. I wondered when the pastor's boy would come knocking. I know who you are, Michael said, and yet you have no weapon. I brought the only one I need, truth. Brighton stood slowly. Truth doesn't save men like us, only leverage. I'm not here to survive, Michael said. I'm here to end your kingdom. Brighton laughed, but Michael pressed a button on his phone. Clark's voice crackled through the speaker. Got it, every word, every name. We're in. Brighton's smile died. Within hours, a federal task force raided Brighton's compound. Files were seized, networks traced. Names spilled out across headlines like blood on an altar. Churches across 3 countries went silent. Michael stood on the balcony of his hotel, watching as a storm far bigger than him raged below. And for the first time in a long time, he felt peace. Back in Riverside, the community welcomed him with open arms, no longer as Saint Mike, no longer as the perfect son, but as Michael Grant, the man who bled, wept, confessed, and rose again. He resumed teaching, but now with stories, not just scriptures. He led prayer, but it came with laughter. He hugged strangers like old friends. He walked without shame. Years passed. Michael's name became known, not for fame, not for flash, but for change. Former addicts, survivors, ex-gang members, lost kids, wayward daughters, broken fathers, they all came to him, not because he was perfect, but because he wasn't, and that made him real. One Sunday morning, a young boy stood beside Michael after service. He was the son of a single mother, shy, quiet. Are you really a pastor? The boy asked. Michael chuckled. Some days. Can I be one too? Michael knelt. You can be anything. Just remember, God doesn't call the perfect. He calls the willing. The boy smiled. Michael stood and looked out over the church. His church. His father watched proudly from the 3rd row. The son who once danced with demons had become a man who walked in light. And this time, the cross on the wall wasn't hiding a camera. It was shining, for all to see.